Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. My name is Danae, and I am here with Ryan this afternoon. And it is almost July 4th. It's July 2nd. We're coming up to the holiday weekend. And my special guest is Ryan Donner. He lives in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So, hello, Ryan. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Danae. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to talk with you. We've had other guests on the show from the United States, but we have not yet had international. So I'm excited to talk with you and get some more information about the real estate in your market. Before we jump right in, tell me about you, because we got connected from social media. I was following your journey a bit there, and I noticed that you used to live in California, and now you're in Mexico. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was originally born in Santa Rosa, California, so the Bay Area. And then I grew up in Chico, just north of Sacramento. And I was living near Lake Tahoe before I decided to move to Mexico. So I'm born and raised Californian, now living in Mexico. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. I found Puerto Vallarta on a cruise, actually. And I knew nothing about the destination. I came on a cruise and said, wow, this place is really cool. So then I started coming back for vacation, and I would stay, a week here, a week there kind of thing. And eventually decided that I was tired of the snow in Lake Tahoe and I wanted to move to the beach. And so here I am 8 years later.
Yeah, it's so amazing. So for those of you who haven't seen the show before, I'm an agent here in Orange County, California, and I have clients who sometimes move out of California just for affordability or some other reasons like that. But sometimes it's just to have a change in scenery. Maybe it has nothing to do with money. It's just, wanting a different lifestyle. And sometimes we don't have people move from California. Maybe we have people buying second homes. So this will be an exciting episode for us. So excited to talk to you more about your market. So just to kick things off, just on the size of your market, here in Orange County, we have 3.2 million people. And I know your market's a little bit smaller, which is probably some of the charm to it. How many people or homes are in your area?
So we have on average about 300,000 people that live here. And that number shoots up quite a bit in what we call the high season, which is roughly December through like Easter. And so there are a lot more people who come and vacation here, snowbirds that come down to Puerto Vallarta from Canada, from the US. And so our population jumps then, and then it dies off in the summertime.
Yeah. Well, I'm like you. My experience with Puerto Vallarta, or at least your original experience, was based on a cruise. I went there, had a fantastic time, did go back a second time for vacation, just like you did, although I'm still here in California. But my sister had a boyfriend back when, and his parents had a vacation home there, and she was going all the time, and she really fell in love with the vibe there, just sort of a little bit more laid back, but also surprisingly high end. I think sometimes we think of Mexico and think maybe it's not so nice, and there's some stunning properties. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. Can we talk about pricing? So I've got my Orange County numbers. We can share and compare notes. In Orange County in June, we closed the median home price in Orange County was $860. The average condo price was $549,950. And the average price per square foot closed out at $436. So how does that compare to your area?
Yeah, we're just a little bit different. Our median home price here is $180,000, so a little bit more affordable. Our median condo price here is $265,000, and we primarily sell condos here in Puerto Vallarta versus homes. And then our median cost per square foot, for you guys, it's going to be about $209 a square foot.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. You said price per square foot. So that reminds me, in the US, we're kind of the odd one to go by square feet, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We use square meters down here. And at first it was a little tough to get used to the difference between square feet and square meters, but now I only think in meters.
Awesome. So tell us about the real estate. I mean, from what I know, which is very little, but it seems to be a lot of, like you mentioned, condos, kind of that high-rise luxury living. I imagine a lot of second homeowners who kind of want that turnkey lock and go, just show up for vacation time, that type scenario. But tell us more about the real estate.
Yeah, so 77% of our market is second home buyers who are
Wow.
buying with the intention of using it as an investment property. So
Okay.
what that means is that they come down, they use the property a week here, a week there kind of thing throughout the year, but the rest of the time they're renting it out and they're paying their monthly maintenance dues, they're paying, all of their costs associated with that condo. If they have a mortgage, then usually they're covering their mortgage as well. Though not very many people use a mortgage to buy a second home down here, just because financing is very expensive down here.
Okay.
And you can't actually, from my understanding, find a bank in the US that will loan for a purchase down here in Mexico. So what that means is that you either have to have all of the cash to do it, or maybe do a refinance or pull out a second on your home in the US, in California, to then buy something down here.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, can we talk a little bit home ownership, because I'm not certain, but is Mexico, do you own the land or how does that work?
And there's often like so much confusion
Yeah.
behind what it really means to own property in Mexico. There's this myth that often floats around that it's this 99-year lease, and after that, then you
Yes.
lose the property. That doesn't exist. It's not true. I'm not even really sure where that myth came from.
Okay.
The reality is that 50 kilometers from the coast, which is about 30 miles, and 100 kilometers from the borders of Mexico, which equates to about 60 miles, is called the restricted zone. And what that means is that foreigners can't own the property outright. So how do we get around this? What
Got
we
it.
do is we create a bank trust, which is called a fideicomiso. So the bank trust is a lot like a living trust in the US. And so the trust holds the property. Your name is on the deed, but along with the bank's name where that trust is held. And so you can do anything you want with the property. You have full domain over it. You can remodel it, you can sell it, you can rent it, you can do, again, whatever you'd like. But it has to be owned through this trust. And so the trust is valid for 50 years, and it renews for another 50 years if you ever reach that term, though I've never had a client that has reached their 50 years.
Sure.
And then it also has a yearly fee, and the yearly fee is usually around $500 US per
Awesome.
year. Yeah.
So, one thing that just popped in my mind, because you mentioned like the second homes, is Airbnb allowed? Is that what people are doing, or property management companies, or how does a typical buyer deal with that?
In fact, most properties are listed on Airbnb down here, and
Okay.
especially in like the Zona Romantica, or the romantic zone is what it's called. That's kind of like the number one tourist neighborhood in Puerto Vallarta.
Okay.
And so what you see of a lot in that part of town, because there are no major hotel chains to compete with, is that everyone who's buying condos there are renting them out then on Airbnb. And I subscribe, I don't know if you're familiar with this, airdna.co.
Yes, I
And
have heard of that. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So if you track on AirDNA, you can see that mostly the condos are rented through Airbnb there, and just a few are rented through VRBO. But then what people will do, will have a local property manager to go in, do the maid service, do the check-ins, check-outs, that kind of thing, in order to make sure that the property's being maintained and rented out.
Yeah, that's great. So the buildings there, obviously they welcome it because they know the tenant, so you aren't going to fight with the HOA about that.
Exactly, exactly.
Great.
Yeah, there are very few buildings, in fact, that don't allow rentals. And ultimately, it boils down to the fact that the Mexican Constitution says that you can pretty much use your property however you'd like. And
Okay.
so it's very difficult to tell someone, no, you can't rent your property out.
Okay. Got
You
it.
pretty much have to have everyone's approval on the HOA to say, yeah, you can't rent it out.
Okay. So what are some of the reasons people like Puerto Vallarta over, I don't know, some other Cancun or some other areas? I mean, what's the vibe that draws people there? Who are you seeing come?
Well, I think that goes back to the point that you first brought up, which is there's this charm about Puerto Vallarta
Yeah.
that you can't get in Cabo, you can't get in Cancun. And unfortunately, I think we're starting to slowly see that disappear as more and more condos are being built. But Puerto Vallarta is just a friendly city. There is no city or friendlier in Mexico than Puerto Vallarta. And so it's access to amazing food, amazing people, a history, a culture that you can't get in other parts of Mexico, or other even beach destinations. And so that's what really drives people to come here. Not to mention the fact that a direct flight from LAX or from SFO is 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So it's a super convenient destination as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a big aspect. And when you're buying vacation property, you want to make sure it's easy to get to. And that's one of the things that I loved about it. It's just a little hop, skip, and a jump over there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, tell me about like your beaches, your weather. Is there scuba diving? Like, what do people do for fun there? Like, how's your restaurant scene? Anything you want to tell us about it?
So the average temperature of Puerto Vallarta is about 80 degrees throughout the year. So in the summertime, it
That's
peaks a little
called
higher than
perfect.
that. Yeah, exactly, it's perfect.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
summertime, it gets a little hotter, and it gets a little more humid. And then in the wintertime, January, February, it's a lot cooler. So it is a great destination just for that reason alone. In terms of things to do, there are a lot of activities around the bay. So, like you mentioned, snorkeling or scuba diving, fishing. There's lots of hiking and trails and things as well up into the mountains. And that includes things like zip line and ATV tours and adventure tours. So there is a lot to do. We're seeing a growing community of like arts and shows, as well as galleries and things. So Puerto Vallarta is really becoming a great destination just for all types of people who are looking to either relax or have an adventure vacation. The restaurant scene is really what's exploding, though. In Old Town, specifically, that Zona Romantica area, that's again kind of like the primary neighborhood where people are renting and living, buying. And so that's where most of the restaurants and things are focused. But we're also starting to see more restaurants grow outside of that zone. And so we're seeing a lot more
Okay.
Mexican nationals that are appreciating, finer dining restaurants and things. The cool thing with Vallarta is that you can find pretty much any kind of food you'd like. So there's German, Greek, Italian, obviously Mexican food, you
Yeah.
name it. So the restaurant scene is spectacular here.
Well, that makes me want to go on vacation, but we are also in our pandemic, so we didn't get to chat about this before the show, but I actually have a trip planned to Hawaii coming up, which I'm very excited for, but it's a hurdle to get there. So do you know, is Mexico open yet? Is there plans to open it?
So as far as I know, right now the border crossings are what are closed between the U.S. and Mexico, but there are still flights from the U.S. to Mexico, so you can get down here.
Okay.
And especially if you have business down here, so if you're coming to look at real estate or actually purchase a property, then they're definitely going to let you through.
Well, guys, again, this is July 2nd. Because things are changing daily, I would recommend, if you are interested in going down there, just reach out to Ryan and check the latest status, because things are changing daily. So, yeah. So, what else do you want to tell us? Maybe anything that you see typical Californians like they don't know and they should know, or any common questions that come up? Anything you want to share with us that comes to mind?
One really important thing I think to mention is property taxes in Mexico. So being from
Okay.
California myself, we're used to property taxes being this huge number. And here, on average, property taxes are about 1/10 of 1%. So what that
Ooh,
means is on a $200,000 condo, you can expect to pay roughly around $200 a year.
wow. Well,
Exactly. So
that's
a
very
lot
exciting.
more.
I'm gonna send you a check. You can just buy one for me while that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. How about the HOA fees? Since we're talking fees, what do those typically run for in maybe a nice building or?
Yeah, in a nicer building that has more amenities and things, you're probably looking to pay in US dollars anywhere from around 300 to 500 on average.
Oh,
And
that's just nuts.
yeah, usually that includes things like water, gas, building insurance, all the
Yeah,
common
I,
amenities,
I say
towards
that's
your
nuts
home.
in a impressed way, because our HOA fees for, let's just say one swimming pool and maybe a fence around it, you're gonna pay on average in Orange County about 400 a month. And if you're going to some of these high-rise condo buildings, a lot of our HOA fees are over 1,000 a month. So
Wow.
um, that's a pretty reasonable fee. I think
That's,
I think that's one of the many draws to Mexico in general, is because maybe your construction costs and labor costs are lower. You get basically all the fees lower, which is pretty desirable. as opposed to buying a vacation home maybe in Hawaii or some of these other areas. You're going to pay the U.S. prices. So
Exactly. And that's, I think, why we do see so many people from Los Angeles, from San
yeah.
Francisco, who come down here, because buying a second home is affordable. It's way cheaper than some of these other locations.
Yeah, and if you want, ocean view in Laguna Beach or Newport Beach, our average price there is 2.4 million, so 200,000. We're in a very good spot.
Yeah. For that same price here in Vallarta, you can get a huge villa right on the ocean, 8
Yeah.
bedrooms. So, yeah, big difference.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a specific deal. Can you tell us about any specific listing that you have or your company has, anything that comes to mind?
So actually, what I wanted to mention is a growing neighborhood that I see as
Okay.
the next kind of hot spot in Puerto Vallarta. So, I've talked a lot about Old Town or Zona Romantica, which, in my opinion, has sort of become saturated.
Okay.
And there are other parts of town now that are also, there are 10 new projects in this neighborhood called Versailles going on. So that neighborhood is starting to become saturated as well. So the next logical place then where tourists are going to be buying are still close to the beach, and still access to all of the restaurants, bars, amenities that they're looking for, which is the neighborhood of Cinco de Diciembre, the 5th of December. And so right now you're starting to see condos being built in this neighborhood, and that's actually the neighborhood I live in. So I wanted to mention just a specific development here that's under construction. It's not my own listing or anything, but I think for the location of it and the potential appreciation value, it's called the Colonial, and it's going to have all the amenities that you'd see in Old Town. It's in the flats, so you're not having to walk up any hills or anything, and you're 2 blocks from the beach. And so on average, the price there is going to be somewhere between 250, 300,000 for a brand new condo.
Yeah, that's
So,
pretty spectacular. I
yeah,
love that you mentioned that because as a real estate investor, I'm always looking at the path of progress in terms of like what's the next, up and coming. So it's really great to hear that that's an opportunity. And yet sometimes when you're in the path of progress, you're getting further and further away from the amenities that people like. But if you're saying you're in that flat zone, you're close to restaurants, still close to the beach, sounds like a pretty awesome opportunity to me. So thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Before we let you go, as far as connecting with you, I mean, I found you on social media. I love your social media presence. Do you want to
Thank
tell
you.
them your YouTube, your Instagram, anything that they should connect with you on, or is your website the best place?
Yeah, probably my website is the best place. On there, we have direct feed to our MLS system, so you can actually go in to our website and sign up for an account into the MLS directly through there. So you can also browse all of the properties, the neighborhoods, and so on. I'm a broker, and so several of my agents write articles about the neighborhoods and stuff. So you can get a better idea of, the feel for each neighborhood. What are the great restaurants and amenities and things that each neighborhood offers? So yeah, the website, randonner.com, is probably the best place if you're interested in buying property in Puerto Vallarta.
Awesome. And just one last question, plus anything else that you want to add. But if you are American who does not speak any Spanish, are you going to have a tough time getting around, or can you manage?
So that's one of the cool things, being an American, that you don't have to speak Spanish really to live in Puerto Vallarta. So does speaking Spanish help? Absolutely. You'll
Yeah,
definitely be able to get much further. But if you don't speak any Spanish, if you can barely say taco, then
yeah,
don't worry. There's going to be lots of people who
you'll
can help
survive.
you.
All right, good.
You'll survive. Exactly.
Well, I'm constantly working on my Spanish, so I will do all right. But there are each of us that have different skill levels when it comes to that. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure. No,
Anything
and
else?
just living down here
Yeah,
alone. I mean, I didn't speak Spanish when I moved down here. Really, I took Spanish in high school, and that was
sure.
just the basics. But living down here, being immersed in it, and then using it for work, I eventually got to probably about 70-80% now. I can speak Spanish. So just being immersed in it all the
Yeah.
time, you're gonna pick up a few words, pick up a few sayings here and there.
Yeah, I
So
love
so
it.
don't
This
be shy.
has been such a cool episode. Anything else that you want to share before we sign off? I know you're 2 hours ahead of us on the time. Just want to get you
Yeah.
back to.
Yeah, exactly. We're a little over 6 o'clock here now, so I haven't even watched the time. Actually, we're probably later than that. So yeah, time to get back to a margarita.
Yes, absolutely. Go watch the sunset.
Exactly. No, what maybe one thing to keep in mind, Mexico is an amazing destination, but it's definitely even more exciting if you ingrain yourself in the culture, get to
Yeah.
learn the locals, what they do, their history. There is so much interesting stuff, behind the scenes, off the beaten path of Mexico, and especially Puerto Vallarta. So don't be shy to adventure out a little bit
Yeah.
and explore some of those not so touristy destinations. You'll find some really amazing restaurants for insanely affordable pricing. So when you come on down here, be sure to check out those other neighborhoods.
I love it. I love it. Well, there you go, guys. You have now your new local friend. If you are thinking of Puerto Vallarta, give Ryan a call, connect with him on his website. He's an amazing guest, and he is like me. He likes talking real estate. So he welcomes your phone calls, your emails, but reach out, and you guys all have a great day and happy 4th of July from the US. All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks.